You didn't get to go to SETC this year.
I didn't.
I missed you.
Oh, I miss you too.
Yeah.
But it was in Baltimore.
It was in Baltimore, but how great is it to have SETC in Baltimore?
I know that.
You know
it's
what's
a great
going to
place.
happen every morning.
Crabs.
2,000 theater kids go, "Good morning, Baltimore."
Did that happen? Did you experience that?
Undoubtedly. I actually
my
didn't
gosh.
do it, but I thought about it every morning. Hello, I'm Adam,
And I'm Kelley.
and we're
Brewing
Theater. Well, those of you who are regular listeners and are tuning in are probably thinking, that's not Tina. That's Kelley. And unfortunately, Tina, our regular co-host, is out today, not feeling well. But we had always planned that we would have our special guest, Kelley Schoger, come on today and tell us a little bit about intimacy coaching, intimacy direction. Kelley will not admit to being an expert in this field, but compared to me, she is definitely an expert. Her day job is working at the University of Alabama as a professor of acting/movement. And I had the privilege of taking a workshop from you about intimacy direction. It was so fun.
Oh, thank you. I had so much fun in Wetumpka.
Yes, isn't that funny? Because we're both based here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, but I always say you have to go 500 miles to meet your neighbor. Because how many people at SETC I'll meet and they're like, "Oh, where do you work?" And they're like, "Oh, I'm at the University of Alabama." And I'm like, "Oh, well, hi, I work 5 miles down the road."
I know. How often do I see you and Tina?
I know, not as often as we would like,
I know it.
right? 'Cause
Yeah, we need to
both think
change
the
that.
world of you.
Oh, I think the world of you all.
Well, you have really helped Tina and I to learn about a relatively new aspect of the world of theater, especially when you think about going back to the ancient Greeks, thousands of BCs and so forth. People were not until recently very concerned about this idea of intimacy coordination. So could you tell us a little bit about what this is and why people should know about it?
Yeah. So, it's fairly new, I'd say the last 10 to 15 years,
Right.
but has really gained traction,
Yes.
in the last 5 to 6, certainly with the Me Too movement.
Yes.
And just wanting to make the workplace, right? Theater is a workplace. It's a place of, artistic endeavor and passion. And,
Yes.
and it's, we love it, but it's a workplace.
But it is work, and that's confusing because the word play means to both play and a play in multiple languages. Jeu in French, I believe, and several other languages. It means to put on a play, but also to play.
Yes.
And so it is easy to forget that we're in a workplace, and so we still have to respect each other's, zones and areas and, autonomy, I think is maybe a key word. Am I right there?
Yeah, absolutely. Boundaries, and sometimes I think it's very easy for boundaries to get blurred in theater, in dance, in the performing arts, because unlike other workplaces, we are very intimate and we're working on material that's really intimate. And we go to dark places and we go to uncomfortable places, and there is physical contact.
Right.
So for the physical contact to be there to be kind of a container, a language for it, choreography, if you will, to keep it safe, is really what it is. And not that the stories that we tell are not that they are safe, or to make those safe and comfortable.
Right. We're not trying to sanitize or whitewash these stories because they deal with important, gritty, real issues, but we are trying to tell them in a way that is safe for our coworkers, our actors in this workplace.
Yeah, and that expectations are known.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know about you, but historically, if there's a scene with a kiss in it or something like that, the director will say, "Okay, now
Kiss.
you kiss, you all kiss."
Right.
And
No
there's
lead up, no
lead up.
preparation.
Yeah, no context. Who initiates it?
Right.
Where does it happen? How long does it last?
Right. With how much pressure. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember all the things it's all coming back to me now.
Yeah, because Adam's talking about the
I feel
ingredients.
like Celine Dion. It's all coming back. It's all. My wife hates that song.
We'll make it into a musical, an intimacy direction musical. No, I
Oh
will
my
never.
goodness! I'm
No,
trying to imagine.
Terrible.
Don't touch me there. Over here's okay.
I'm gonna open this fence for you. Oh my God.
I love it, but seriously, the funny thing is, you have these characters sometimes, like take Romeo and Juliet, who are passionately and madly and teenagerly in love with one another, you know, and the boundaries very quickly strip away. But if Adam and Kelley were cast in those roles, maybe we've met before, maybe we've never met. And now all of a sudden we have to portray this young, passionate love. And you're right. In the past, I went through the University of Alabama as an acting or theater minor generally, but focusing on acting. And this was 93 to 97-ish. And yeah, I mean, it was like theater people hug, theater people touch, like there's the memes on TikTok, like, I'm a theater person, of course I hug everybody, like
Right.
that was just sort of the way. And we were all just sort of, we thought we were so hippy dippy and nobody ever really worried about that before. And now
Or
what we've
if they
discovered
worried
is
about
that
it, they wouldn't say.
they were worrying silently because they didn't want to be ostracized or blacklisted or, we're not going to cast that person because they said no one time. So that's shifting though, right? And this is helping us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, theater we're yes and people. We learn about in improvisation, yes and, right? We have to say yes all the time. And so, and then the industry teaches us to, don't be difficult.
Right.
You need to be easy to work with and all of these things. Take direction. Yeah. So any kind of sense of agency is kind of stripped away from the actor.
Right.
And
pardon the pun.
I just made a pun and I didn't even know it. I didn't even know it. I need to remember that pun, and I'm going to pretend like the next time I use it, it's just coming. I didn't realize it.
It just happened naturally.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So actors learning how to say no is really important.
Yeah.
But in some of the language, it's hard to do that. And in the creative process, saying no is difficult. It almost feels like you're stopping the creative process or negating it in some way. So there's a lot of different language to use that's now codified.
Right. And without that language, if someone were to say, I'm not ready to kiss that person, it could also hurt people's feelings too. Like maybe the man doesn't feel comfortable kissing the woman. Maybe she gets her feelings hurt, or vice versa, when it's not even about you. Whereas having this language in this conversation in advance helps to depersonalize it in a lot of ways and say, okay, well, this is just, you're both personalizing and depersonalizing it. It's not about you. This is about me. Because I have whatever going on in my life. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, or like the classic situation showmance,
Oh, yes.
Where one actor just goes for it and does something, and the other is like, were they acting?
Right.
Or do they really feel that? And that gets really muddy and tricky and doesn't help the creation of the art, So, yes, these things happen, but there is a system in place for creating that moment, like fight choreography or like dance choreography. Obviously, it's a bit different. This is something that happens in our everyday, but it still can be navigated in a way that's crafted.
Yeah. And it's really interesting how this philosophy is becoming infused in all the various different aspects of theater. Case in point, recently we had Rowan Johnson, who came from Universal Studios, where she's over like all technical theater excitement at Universal Studios. So she's they're creating all kinds of shows and things, and they do both the technical direction aspect of it as well as the choreography part of it. But when we did that workshop together, the first discussion was we're going to go through, and they were talking in terms of green zones and red zones. And so you would literally kind of touch the different parts of your body when you were talking to your scene partner with whom you were going to engage in theatrical violence, saying, okay, these are the places that are safe for me or not safe for me. And people were really actually eager to get into the conversation of actually my thigh right here, I bruised that a couple of days ago. So if we could steer clear of that area while we're fighting, you know, or I have a trick knee, or, you know, I've had back surgery. And so people were able to open up and share, but it made the whole thing safer for everybody because we'd had that conversation. Okay, these are my red zones and green zones. And you know, a lot of us were like, okay, I'm pretty much green except maybe my bikini area. It was one way that we put it in very politically, you know, correct. And then others, they had certain zones of their body they were very ticklish, or it was just too intimate for them to be touched here or there. But having that conversation before ever even learning a slap or punch or kick or anything like that, I think it put everyone at ease, really, and opened the door for better communication on stage.
I love that. Yeah, better communication. And then it results in better storytelling.
Oh.
You know, because if everyone is very clear about context and destination of contact and touch, then we're all on the same page, and we can then really dig into the story. Laura Reichert at Theatrical Intimacy Education, or TIE, I've done a lot of training with them. I really love their pedagogy, and she talks about productive discomfort.
Okay.
So we're not trying to make people comfortable,
Right.
because a lot of times stories are not comfortable.
Right.
But there's productivity, there's safety in the discomfort.
Right.
And I really, really love that, because I think there's a misconception sometimes of, intimacy direction is like policing and, you know, kind of, as you were saying, sanitizing it.
Right.
And it's really not. It's just about clarity of communication about what's going on in that part of the story.
Right.
So if there is a passionate moment or passionate kiss, well, that word is very subjective, and
it means different things to different people.
Exactly. But
so?
if we say if this embrace or this kiss happens on a 5 count with a muscle level touch, and the destination is X, Y, and Z, we can craft it to look like whatever word we want.
Right.
But each person knows exactly what's happening.
Right.
You know?
And the order and what to expect the whole time. Which some people, I can imagine, some actors, do you ever get pushback where they're like, well, you know, what if I'm feeling something in the moment? Is that a common thing for somebody to say, you know, this feels too stilted, or how do you respond to that, or how have you encountered it, and then how have you explained it to someone in that situation?
Yes, that's a great question. Absolutely, because we want to be working on impulse as actors, and if something comes up, we don't want to, you know, especially in the early rehearsal process.
Sure.
You know,
while you're discovering things about your character and who they are, and how the text integrates, right?
Yeah. So, you know, what I would say, how it's different from dance choreography or fight choreography, although that also can change in the creative process. That the choreography of it and the discussion of it is very fluid and flexible as we discover the story. So I know when I've choreographed moments, it doesn't always stay that way. You know, we might choreograph it one way, and then as we continue to discover the moment, what that moment really is about and what the story is, we can absolutely shift the choreography to reflect that.
Yeah.
But I think especially if it's a moment of physical intimacy, to have that done in the room with the intimacy director,
Right.
Or intimacy captain if the person is not in there, so that it's not one actor just changing it on another actor,
Right.
and that could cross a boundary for that other actor.
Absolutely, just in the moment. So instead, what you would encourage people to do is that I still want you to have moments of insight. I still want you to have those moments of creativity. But if a great idea comes to you, let's pause and let's have a conversation about that and say, what if in this moment my hand went there, you know, for a 2 count or whatever? would that read more passion or would that read whatever? And then they're having that conversation with their scene partner as well as the choreographer, as opposed to just going for it.
Yeah, and yeah, totally. Yeah, that's exactly it. And I know, I mean, I'm an actor first and foremost, also a director, but when I'm an intimacy director, I come in with some ideas, but it is very much in conversation with the actors and the director.
Right.
Unless the director's like, peace out, I'm out now, you take over this and I'll collaborate with the actors. But in my experience, the director's in the room and,
Sure.
I will absolutely, I have to take into account how they see that
Their
moment.
vision for that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of like a in-between, person.
Yeah, a facilitator kind of, as opposed to you're coming in to shake your finger at somebody and say, no, you horrible chauvinistic pig. Unless that's warranted.
Which, in this industry, that's why some people are in jail.
And why we needed a Me Too movement.
Yes.
Because there was that for just years and years. It was like the director is absolute. And whatever the director says goes. But the director maybe has no training about psychology or with regards to intimacy or even any knowledge or care about what baggage people bring to the table. Because that's an aspect of it too, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, intimacy direction really is kind of also a trauma-informed practice. Okay. And that is part of the training as well.
When you say trauma-informed practice, what does that mean?
So we're not therapists.
Right.
Meaning an actor doesn't need to tell me why they have a boundary. Okay. And I don't ask. Right. They can certainly tell me. And as an educator, if students want to talk to me, absolutely. But
we do have to disclose that we are not confidential reporters, however.
Yes.
If you report something illegal to us, we are required by law to report that.
Yes. That is true.
So that is true. Before you disclose anything, that I may have to report, just know that you're welcome to talk to me, but I will have to report it if it's something that raises a red flag. But yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
But I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's very important.
We've recently completed our training here at Shelton State. I'm demonstrating that money was well spent.
You were listening. You were paying attention.
I was listening.
But that in terms of boundary practices, that's really one of the keys. Is that you don't have to tell me what your boundary is. You don't have to say why. You don't have to tell anyone why. That's your boundary. Right. And so, just being trauma informed, I can understand. I can help facilitate that. Right. And also being a movement person, but I think intimacy directors kind of need to understand this too, is that we can look at body language. Right. So if we see an actor uncomfortable, or they say, "Oh no, that's fine." I've been in this situation. Yes. I was like, "Oh no, that's fine," but I can tell it's not okay.
You can tell.
Or they need more clarity. And so I'll say, "Oh, let's back this up a little bit. We can use a placeholder here, so we can discuss and
come back to that a little later,
or re-choreograph, or rethink what we want to do there."
What are some of those signs? Is it like they say I'm fine, but every muscle in their body is clenched?
Oh yeah, they're not breathing. They're holding their breath. Yeah.
Someone recently told us in a different training that FINE stands for feelings I'm not expressing. How are you today? Fine. I'm fine. Are you fine today?
Is brilliant.
I hope you're better than fine. I do.
Yes, that's really good.
Feelings I'm not expressing.
Feelings I'm not expressing.
So, well, we usually, we like to teach people a little something, as we go along. So if maybe you could tell us a little bit about where did you learn all of the wonderful things that you've collected along your journey about intimacy direction? Where would you recommend that people maybe learn more if this is something that they're really interested in?
Yeah. So I always say I'm still learning. There's so much to learn. And there are several...
And it's still evolving.
And it's still evolving. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So I started my training with theatrical intimacy education, or Thai. And I did.
So you're a TIE fighter.
I don't know, what is that?
That's from Star Wars, a TIE fighter.
Oh my gosh. I don't know that reference, but I'm going to look it up, Adam.
TIE fighter? Okay.
I'm
We're
gonna
going to
look it
have to
up.
have a long discussion over some wonderful cottage cheese with some blueberries and pistachios. And I will get you up to speed on Star Wars. But tell everybody.
Dash of coffee.
That's right. But go ahead. Tell everybody else about what TIE also stands for.
So in addition, theatrical intimacy education, they're based in North Carolina, but they do a lot of online workshops.
Okay.
And
so you don't necessarily have to travel to learn some of these principles. Okay.
Yeah, and they're great. They're Zoom workshops, and they have also, they don't certify, but they have kind of a beginning level, intermediate, advanced.
Okay.
And so some of these online workshops will count if you want to go in that direction.
Okay.
But if you just want to know a little bit more, just sign up for one of their workshops.
Yeah.
They're great, and they offer them year round. You can sign up on their website to get their newsletter, and those will come directly to your email. Those workshops.
Yes. For those of us who read email.
Yes, there's that. But I think they have a social media presence as well. They have a Facebook page and an Instagram.
Fantastic.
And then intimacy directors and coordinators. I've done my level 1 and 2 training with them.
IDAC or just IDC?
IDC.
Okay.
IDC.
But you could be IDAC if you threw the and in there.
True. It's just IDC.
IDC.
Yes. Very important.
Intimacy directors and
coordinators.
Coordinators, not choreographers.
Correct. Okay. Yeah. So just quickly, if you are working in the theater, you're an intimacy director or an intimacy choreographer.
Okay.
And they're kind of interchangeable. It really just depends on what you want to call yourself.
Okay. Pick your title.
Yeah, pick your title. I mean, I as an educator, intimacy director, because sometimes I'm really doing a lot of the choreography. Sometimes I'm just helping facilitate.
Sure.
Events, so.
Okay. So in one circumstance, you might be asked to be credited as coordinator if you just came in for a day or two or something. Whereas the other way, if you were more involved with the production, you might say director?
Well, actually, coordinator is film and television.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if you're an intimacy coordinator, you're working in film and television.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a clear delineation right there.
Yeah. I mean, these things are evolving too, because sometimes people call themselves intimacy coaches. I mean, you know, but I'd say if you're working in theater, intimacy director or coordinator.
It makes
not coordinator. Choreographer.
Intimacy seem a little bit more like a sport if you're a coach.
True.
Well, Kelley, this has been so much fun, and I'm so grateful for you for being one of our very few special guests on Brewing Theater.
Oh, this is fabulous.
But I hope that you will continue this important work, and that at some point we'll have a wonderful opportunity to bring you in to Theater Tuscaloosa to one of our productions, or maybe even we'll do our own little workshop and invite some of our talent to come out and learn these very important principles, so they'll be able to better implement them in our shows, and we'll make better theater that way.
Oh, yes. And each time I teach, I learn. So that's why I like to do it too. There's always more to learn about storytelling.
You'll hear from Kelley Schoger. We haven't put her out to pasture yet. Well, until next time, I'm Adam.
And I'm Kelley.
And we've been Brewing Theater. Cheers.
Cheers. Bon café.
Bon café.